Give up your day job, John.
No problem.
Right? That for being an IT guy.
That is never going to be
Great.
Yep.
Well, good afternoon and welcome. I'm Commissioner Tony Aritz. I'm filling in for our chair and vice chair. We're both absent today, so I'm doing jump seat duty, so I'd like to welcome everybody. So with the quorum of the board president, I call the meeting to order. I'd like a roll call of the board members present. Commissioner Lalonde. Present. Commissioner Smith. Here. Commissioner Timbo.
Here.
Great. And then will you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you could please remain standing. Since our last meeting, we lost a dear friend of our aviation community with the passing of Homer Holman, founder of Holman Aviation. For nearly 70 years, Holman Aviation has served Great Falls flyers from their first solo flights to commercial aircraft servicing. In recognition of his many contributions to the Great Falls International Airport, I would ask that we observe a moment of silence in honor of Homer Holman. Thank you. Be seated. Then now next on the agenda is approval of consent agenda. Any discussion or items that would like to be pulled out for further discussion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second? I'll second it. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Okay, director's report.
Yes, great. Happy April, everyone. A couple things to report real quick. In the last month, we did receive a letter from the FAA with regard to street assessments, and the FAA has indicated street assessments are revenue diversion under their views, and so the letter was directed to the city, so the city is aware of the FAA's determination, and we did follow up with an email. We haven't heard anything back yet. But we assume that the city will probably want to meet. The last item of, I think, discussion, well, hopefully, I mean, they may not consider that letter to be the final word, but it did come from the Northwest Mountain region, so hopefully it'll satisfy their needs. But we still have to settle on how the roads are owned. That's still, I think, a point that us in the city may see differently, and so ideally here in the next month or two we'll convene and talk about that, and we've got a year until we really start design work on the roadway projects that we need to do out here on the interior roads, but hopefully in that period we'll resolve the ownership of those roads and move forward with airport business and rebuilding a good relationship with the city and all those things. And so we, like I said, haven't heard any follow-up, but the letter was pretty, I thought, well worded, and in terms of gave the same citations that the airline letter had given, and we had previously given. So I think from our perspective, that's a pretty final indication to us that we shouldn't be paying the street assessments or the admin fees, which are based on street assessments. So we'll kind of consider that concluded. We did today sign the service agreement with United Airlines for the Chicago flights for this summer. That's an agreement between us, the Chamber, who holds our incentive dollars, and United Airlines for those routes. It takes us a few months every year to get the final contract numbers in there, but we will see those Chicago flights extend through Labor Day this year. We've got a guarantee of about $200,000 for this year's flights. For profitability on those flights. I do expect it'll probably be the last of our incentive dollars this year that we'll have available. The SCASD grant is about 65% of that $200,000 will expire this year, and so those dollars will be gone. And then our local funds we expect will probably expend on this year's service. We are working with the Chamber to do a new funding drive for new service for a new incentive fund. And I'm the quarterly lunch speaker at the chamber this month, and that'll be kind of the kickoff of that fund drive to try and put together a new funding pool for additional service. And we're hopefully going to have dollars in place this fall to begin some discussions with some of the airlines about some new routes for next summer. We think there's some opportunities out there, so ideally we'll have some incentive dollars to talk about with them. The water tower is going to be coming down, I guess, here in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, the
And
13th, they should be moving in.
I guess it's only going to take about a week. We've got some parking closed off out there right now to allow them to have some space to work. Other than that, we don't expect any real problems. But yeah, that'll be a long-standing icon of the hill here that'll be taken down. And then the other thing I was going to mention is the localizer work will start here in about 2 weeks too.
Yep.
And we'll be expanding. That takes, I guess, not even a month, right?
It'll just be a few weeks.
A few weeks to get the localizer expanded, and then we'll have our Cat 3 back up and running. Also, construction activity is resumed, and maybe Rod, could you update us maybe a little bit on the construction?
Yeah, so we got going again finally on the SRE building. They've been working for a couple weeks on that now. Getting rebar in, they're gonna pour the slab May 6th, about that time frame. They wanna get that floor poured and then they'll start erecting the building. All the building components are on site, so that's moving along pretty well. Sewer line, that work's resumed a couple weeks ago, so they've actually got close to where they're tying in. They still got to go to the west towards the new large hangar, so they're moving along on that pretty fast. And then
Did you mention the sewer
got,
line?
what's that?
The sewer line?
Yeah, sewer line, that is what's going on right now.
Not the water line, no.
The water,
Sewer
the water
line.
line's completed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
water line's completed, but yeah, the sewer line.
Sewer line is what we started up again
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago, so that one's moving along. I'd say another 15, 20 days maybe.
Correct, yep.
And we'll have that in. And then in the terminal building here, we're working on a LED lighting project. That's probably about 75% complete. We've been replacing a lot of lights, mainly on the main floor, going to an LED light in the ceilings there. You'll see them down in the baggage area, in front of the ticket counters. We did quite a bit of work out in the bag drop-off area, as well as the bag rooms for the airlines. We redid all the lights in there to LED. So that's still going on. We're going to do some work in the offices, and then a little bit of work in the restaurant there, and that'll take care of that project. So that's moving along. Chris and his team, they're working on next year's project, the road project that'll be from about the terminal around the curve towards FedEx. It won't go all the way to FedEx, but past that intersection, we'll do a little cleanup on that intersection to Holman and FedEx down there. So Chris and his team are working on that. Since Holman's has moved into their new fuel farm, we'll begin the process of removing 9 of the underground tanks there. Dwight and his team have already started emptying those tanks, so we'll be working through that project with the state DEQ and stuff. So and then John mentioned the localizer that'll start here pretty soon, and the water tank. That's what we got, was about the 13th. So when it slips about 80 cars in in that blocked off area, the Symphony is flying out, so we're gonna fill it up just before they start, and it should empty because they'll all be coming home the same day. So you'll see it fill up once more and then hopefully empty out. So that'll be good for us and the parking lot. So.
What's our completion date on the SRE building now? Do we have
Still around June.
July 14th.
July 14th.
But that's full everything.
Full everything.
The building will be sided, utilities will be extended.
Okay.
So move in at the end of July, early August, probably.
Any questions?
Are they renting a crane for that water tower?
Yeah, yeah, they'll have a crane up. It's already been airspaced and stuff, so. I think they're saying like 200 feet is what they anticipated it at. They've given me anything from 4 days to a week and a half to take it down, so I'll imagine, obviously they'll start at the top and work their way down, so the crane shouldn't be a factor for very long.
Are they gonna let that wall just kind of roll down the hill?
I think so, down the interstate. They'll put that on the roundabout.
Any further questions? Okay, are there any agenda items that present a conflict of interest and consequently require a member to abstain from a discussion and vote? Hearing none, we'll start with the first agenda item, children's play area presentation.
Yeah, you guys, I realize we've only got the newer commissioners today, but when we did the renovation back in 2014, one of the themes of the renovation was to draw in more local experience into the building, and you see that manifested in the murals that the Charlie Russell Museum have put up in the building, and the artwork we display above the checkpoint, in the fixtures and the rusted metal sign standard, which we'll be pulling to this side of the building here in the next renovation, to really reflect more of our region. And so I think in about that time frame, I began working with Jay Russell, who's joined us today from the Lewis and Clark chapter here in Great Falls, the Portage chapter here in Great Falls, and we started talking about trying to identify an area that we could use as a children's play area. We used to have a big slide and ball pit and bacteria factory that used to reside kind of underneath the soffit along the back of the building. It's still around, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's under the building somewhere, but we kept it. But we knew at the time it was pretty beat up and dated, and we wanted to have something that was more reflective of our community. And so I started talking to Jay, and here a couple years later, we have a proposal to finish this area of the building. The area we're talking about is the small alcove. It's between the restaurant and the Alaska and Delta gates, and so it's kind of, we've had some extra seating in there right now. It's just a little bump out in that Alaska and Delta gate area over there at 4 and 5 that we've been using for auxiliary seating. And we kind of pulled that area into the airside because we knew we were short on airside space. We have plenty of space on the second floor up here on the non-air side, but we wanted to have something for the kids that are coming in and out of our area that would be educational and also kind of give them an idea of the history. And so maybe Jay, if you'd like to maybe walk us through what you're proposing and give us a few words about it, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah. So my name is Jay Russell. I'm the Executive Director of the Lewis and Clark Foundation, and we are affiliated with the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center, which is owned and operated by the U.S. Forest Service. So we're the nonprofit that is connected with that. And as John said, we've been working on this for a few years, and it's an idea that we had quite a long time ago, seeing a lot of other airports having children's like play areas that are hands-on, that the kids can utilize while they're waiting for flights and so on. And so we thought it'd be a great opportunity to showcase our community, the heritage of our community with the Lewis and Clark background there, and a way to bring it in to be educational as well. And so it's an 18 by 30 foot space, and it's visible through glass windows from the unsecured part of the airport. And then John mentioned it's right by gates 3 and 4. And so this is a design done by Klunt Hosmer. It's a design firm, an exhibit design firm that we've used in the past at the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center. So we've had some exhibits by this firm as well. And we started out with really gearing toward kids, children, but as it evolved, we saw opportunity to really engage all ages, all levels, basically. And so there are some things for the little ones, the small kids, older kids, and teenagers and adults. So we've got a lot of text on the wall for the adults and older kids, and I'll run through it here. And then a couple of different areas where the little ones can climb on and be occupied. Let me show it one more time, and I'm going to do a little narration with it, just to explain some parts of it. I just wanted you to see it first of all. So we're coming through the glass in the unsecured part, entering that space as we start out. Oh, this one.
Uh-oh.
Let's do that.
Now, we never talked about a live tour.
Yeah. a little surprise there. for you.
Petting zoo.
Oh, let's see. That must be the next step.
Yeah.
There.
How do we get rid of this thing?
Let's see. Wonder if you hit escape, if it'll go back.
Drop it down. You use that to close your window now, right there. Yep. Yep. And then can you go back? You take your back button. Do that now. Okay. Thanks. Okay, so we'll start, that's through the glass right there. The boat on the right side is it's actually three-dimensional. Kids can climb in there and climb on it. The text on the wall, just various aspects. There's a bench right there on the left that we just saw. Let me stop this for a minute if I can. The bench to the left is would be for parents to just watch while their children are playing, and an opportunity for them to be on their phones or do what they do while the children are playing around in there. The teepee is it's three-dimensional. It sticks out from the wall, but it's not a full teepee and it's not full height because of the space restriction in there, but kids can climb inside of it. There's a little campfire there. In the far corner behind the woman with the child is another bench. We're looking at possibly putting a Seaman dog in there. That's the dog of the Lewis and Clark expedition. The case to the right there, to the of the woman, is we'll be putting some artifacts in that case and under glass. And then on top of that is some flip-up panels that will tell the story of 6 of the most prominent members of the expedition and what happened to them and their role in the expedition. So there'll be those panels will be there as well. And then the corner post here. Let's see here. So that's it. So we're excited about the possibilities of not just showing our Lewis and Clark heritage to the little ones, but to people of all ages. As they come through the airport, getting off a plane, they'll see it. When they get back on a plane, they can spend a little more time with it. We also see it as a good way for the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center to help draw people and travelers as they're coming in, and they'll see that, get a little taste of what the Interpretive Center is all about. We'll have some brochures there, and hopefully it'll drive some traffic and some visitation down to our site as well. So we see it as a lot of really good opportunities for for ourselves, for the airport, and for just Great Falls in general, for our heritage. So.
Thank you, Jan. I just say, I'm really excited about the project. I mean, those of you that have been following what we've been doing with the marketing over the last few years, we really have reached into these larger urban areas like Chicago and Philadelphia and marketed our community as a portal into Glacier, as a portal into fly fishing is a portal into all of these other activities outside of our community. And then, we've worked with the tourism, the Great Falls Tourism, to really try to enrich the local offerings. And last year we did that paddling trail, which you can download online. You put in just outside of town, and there's, I think, 10 Lewis and Clark sites between here and Sacagawea Island that you can visit on that paddling tour. That was something the airport developed. With the pamphlet actually has Lewis and Clark recitate or quotes right out of their journals to try and enrich the tourism offering that we have here. And the whole goal of this, and including this, is to encourage people to stay in the community longer or come back and visit the community because we have a lot to offer. And so I think really we as the airport have an important function in that regard of tuning up the tourism offerings we have in this community, making people aware of them, and making them appealing. I can't tell you the number of times I've met people in the terminal who are here on business, and you can see them just unloading the brochure rack. And oftentimes I'll stop and talk to them, and they all say the same thing. It's such an interesting area. I want to come back here when I have more time. And so by doing things like this, you create those links where they say, oh, my kid would really enjoy that history. That would be fun to do that with my kids or my wife or whatever. And so to me, I think this is really a great opportunity to partner with a premier local museum in a way to bring that right into our building and enrich that tourism offering. And so I would really encourage the board to approve this plan of working with the folks to put this play area together and see this brought into our building. And I think your timeline, you're talking maybe even later this summer, sounded like.
They said late July, but I'm thinking it'd be early August.
Early August.
You know how projects go and sometimes.
And then probably you're thinking, 30 days of construction at most or something like that?
At most, probably. Yeah.
And so we could have this in place by the holidays, which would be really nice for families coming through the airport at the holidays to have this touch point in our community. And so I think it's great. I really am excited that we're finally seeing this coming together, and working with Jay's been really terrific.
Now, this is fully funded by the foundation then, or?
Yes, we raise funds to fund it, yeah.
Okay, so this is
We
just.
still have to raise a little bit more, but we've got most of the funding in place.
So we're approving basically the use of the space.
Use of the
for this-
space.
For this purpose.
Yep. Yeah, and the board had seen this, it's been probably a year or so, since this was on the working session, but we've been talking about it for 3 or 4 years now and trying to bring this together. So it's exciting to see it finally coming to be.
We'll entertain a motion to approve the staff's recommendation that the use of the space by the Lewis and Clark Foundation for Children's Area. Second. Any further discussion, questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, thanks so much, Jay.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Switch presentations here. Seems like a wide bunch of topics discussed on Vimeo. All right.
Go ahead.
Oh, great. Well, the second thing on our agenda today is just a brief presentation with regard to Homer Holman in recognition. And, I just think with his passing, it's a good time to really take a minute to reflect on the history of our airfield and on the history of an aviator. And, as a person that's lucky enough to show up in an airfield every day, I think those of us that have done that as a career know how special it is to be able to make a career in this industry. And so, I think Homer has a lot of aviation history. I mean, you can see the things that he's done there. Really a great tale of a true aviator, from pilot to instructor to entrepreneur, career aviator, friend of aviation. And I think that says a lot about what he was able to do here. And so we've assembled a few photos. I think it's just really instructive when you look at folks that entered that industry when he did. And as a young man flying in a biplane there, and moving on into piston planes, and eventually saw the jet age. For someone to invest in an industry that was just beginning to crawl in those days, and to think that they can make a life from it, took a great deal of courage. And I just think that's really an important thing to think about for a few minutes. I mean, if you're going to throw all in on an investment with your life, to do it in an industry that's so new and so untested, and to really make that dedication to something like that is really remarkable. I mean, this was an industry that had not found its feet yet, and no one knew for sure that the commercial aviation was even going to work. I mean, the trains were still big, particularly in communities out in the West. And I think it's just really a neat tale to think about what he saw in his lifetime in our industry. And when you look through some of these photos, I mean, I think this one's a great one here. You can see, no one bothered to clean up that day, except for this gal. But back then, I mean, the serviceability of these airplanes, and every time you got in them in an industry that didn't have standards yet developed on how to maintain these aircraft, I mean, you were taking your life in your own hands, and you didn't have 15,000 hours of flight experience in most of these cockpits like you do today. These are you only got to fly when you got the opportunity to fly, and you were flying with people that had not received the fullest amount of training. And so, I mean, it's just remarkable when you think about someone like Homer who flew throughout his career. In fact, when I met him some 8 years ago, he was still working on a pilot rating, and I just think that's incredible. To think of the career that he spanned throughout all those years and what he saw in this industry. Another great photo here. We're trying to read what's on that cake, and it looks like it's something with the Guadalcanal.
It was actually in recognition of either the 1,000th or the 10,000th safe landing on an aircraft carrier.
Oh.
And then Homer had been the lucky guy
To do it.
to not wreck.
So it must be the USS Guadalcanal, I bet. Because we were able to zoom in on that photo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we could see USSS, but I couldn't, beyond that.
I don't know which carrier, but.
Yeah, it must be the Guadalcanal. But that's really interesting. I mean, so here's a jet engine. I mean, you see, a person that started out in a biplane, looking down the working end of that jet engine. I mean, just what a remarkable time in our industry to start out. And I just think these photos are so indicative of what it means to have a career in aviation. I mean, the incredible things you see when you work on an airfield or as an aviator, it really is a special way to spend a career. Here again, now he's on the civil side, obviously having a good day. I love this photo. It reminds you of the private side of things, and how great it is to be out there and amongst the airplanes, and just a terrific look at what it's like to be on a field on any given day. And obviously he's having a good day there. He's smiling, and I don't know, was that his plane, Dwight? Was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I'd point out that's kind of interesting is that location right there is this
In the parking
lot over here, where it used to be the employee parking lot.
Well, I think that, is it the concrete pad
Yep,
that,
that's that building in the background is that
Yeah.
concrete pad that
What was-
no longer exists. But,
So where the rental cars have their overflow today, and that's
So-
where we moved the employees to a few years ago on the asphalt there.
but you stop and think about what he saw over 70 years here on this airport.
Absolutely remarkable. And fields like this, I mean, you had to transition from a military field into civil service, and it takes businesses to make that happen. Without commercial fueling, without a service industry, somebody that can service an airplane, without a flight school, these fields never would have made it into the commercial realm, and many of them haven't. I mean, there's many airports that have struggled to make that transition out of the military field days into a commercial service airport, and people like this are really what made that happen. Without any of that commercial servicing, there's just no way to do it. And I mean, all the great stories you hear about our airfield, servicing the Russian flights that that needed the fuel on their way in, and they processed the flights for federal inspections here on the airfield in the days when the planes didn't have the range to overfly us into LA or San Francisco or Seattle or something like that. I mean, those are the kinds of things it took somebody to figure out how to do and to make happen. And so much of that happens in the private aviation realm, the FBOs, the lifelong aviators that know how to get these things done and go out and do them. And I just think it's a great story of a successful aviation career. So here, this one's kind of blurry. It's an old photograph. But here's the old terminal building, and here's Holman Aviation. This was was this the original building, Dwight?
Yes, it was. And that square portion of the building was the concourse for the ticket counters for the airlines. And then down at the end of that corridor was where Holman Aviation had their office.
Yeah. And that's another great illustration. We went through that phase of the industry where there was a blending of the private aviation and the commercial aviation, where in many cases the FBOs serviced all of the airplanes, did all the under the wing, and provided ticket counters for them and office space for them, and the flight planning was done in those FBO offices. I mean, those were different times than we have today, where it's all been corporatized and sterilized and and kind of, I don't want to say wrecked, but but a different day. And their Holman Aviation is right in the center of the business. Airplanes would have been parked right over here, and there they are, right in the middle, making it all work. And then you flash forward to today, and the number of facilities they have, and the fueling operation, and the new fuel farm, and what's been built out of that small beginning, here on our field, and continues today to provide that excellent service to the flying community. I just think it's a tremendous success story, not only for Holman Aviation, but for our airport that has existed here on our field. Obviously, success of a different kind, and that's a great photo with great grandkids there, and I'm sure a fantastic memory. And so, what we'd like to ask the board, we'd like to acquire a bench similar to what the city has used throughout the city park system, a concrete bench, and a placard to recognize Holman on our field there. We've got the wording of the plaque there that we'd like to place on that bench, and we'd like to place it in the cell phone lot just outside the parking blocks there, overlooking the city. And I just think it's a beautiful way to see the skies, from up here on the hill and look over our community, and a fitting recognition of a career aviator, and somebody that was very important to this field. And so we'd like to ask the board's permission to acquire the bench and the placard, and then hopefully here over the summer we could have a brief moment to go out and dedicate that, maybe when we resume in August.
I've known him for 50 years. Can I make a motion?
Yes, you may.
I'd like to make the motion that we buy the plaque, the bench, place it out there on the parking lot, overlooking the city.
You're on. Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, quite an aviation legacy to celebrate.
Man, you look just like him.
Not Marine.
Oh,
He does.
Let's back up a few pictures. Hold on. Wait a minute. There we go.
A little more similarity there.
Thank you very much. That's a very nice recognition and honor for Dad.
He's quite a guy.
Well, great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Okay, are there any further comments from the board? Commissioner Lamont? Sir. Commissioner Chimbo? Commissioner Smith?
Good meeting.
Okay. Are there comments from the public?
I would like to make one.
Okay.
On a different subject. I attended the commissioners' briefing today, and it struck me when the commissioners spent some time talking about the interchange out here. And I didn't see that the flavor was that there was not a lot of support for what was being contemplated. And then I heard John say essentially the same thing. And so I would like to encourage the airport, because I went to that open house as well, and it seemed very one-directional. They're going to make their presentation, and they weren't going to listen to, or if they did listen, they weren't going to acknowledge any counter thoughts on that. So I would like, this is our livelihood at the airport. That is incredibly important. Access to this airport, it can make or break this airport and all the businesses that this airport hosts. I would encourage the airport itself to maybe organize all the stakeholders here at the airport to speak as one voice, and to go back to the Montana Highway Department with our thoughts as to what that should be, and then maybe even to branch out into the community, to the chamber, the city, and the county, and to really put some pressure on the highway department to do it the way we should do it, rather than what I think they're proposing is a cheap way to do it. And it's not going to have much foresight, and I think it's going to tie the hands of the airport for years and years to come, because we're going to get one shot at spending some money out here, and that's not going to do us any good.
Yeah, no, certainly.
Light and figure out.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I think we've had a hard time, all the way back to the corridor study, getting the highway department to really understand the intricacies of that intersection. And so, yeah, definitely we do need to get them engaged again and ensure that they are incorporating all the things we see up here in terms of development. So the chamber is engaged. Brett Doney, actually got an email from him last week also, and I don't know that anybody's real pleased with what's being planned. I mean, the only part of it that makes sense to me is the right lane, which will help with the capacity, but it's certainly not a 20-year solution. At best, it might be a 10-year solution.
But I think the voice of one, and have it be strong entities like the Guard and FedEx and other entities,
Yeah.
in addition to just the airport authority.
No doubt, and yeah, we've started on that already. I contacted FedEx corporate last week. Did they send someone to the meeting, Rod? Do you know?
No, not when I was there.
Not when you were there, and and so we're definitely trying to get everybody kind of coalesced into what they think about it. And we haven't visited with Mang since the presentation, but ideally, we'd all be on the same page as what needs to happen.
Maybe you can get with Chair Hogan after this and
I think
figure
Jeff
out
Carlton
plan.
went over there.
Yep.
Yeah, he was there. I think he said he had a meeting there Friday morning
Yeah.
with the chief of CE. I haven't heard what came out of that meeting, but I know that they.
And
had
Jewett was
representatives
there when we were there.
No, we'll definitely more to come on that for sure.
Thank you. Any other additional comments? Okay, with no further business to come before the board, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you. And since we've got time, does anybody need a break? We can move into the work session. With the quorum of the board present, I call this meeting to order. So let's please let the minutes reflect those present. And we'll begin with our first agenda item, PFC application amendment.
Yes, a few years ago we did our